Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Brownie here from the Young Zings. Just recently on Friday, the Master of Pendulum Structure Deck released, and we had our first major event of the new format this weekend featuring Pendulum Magicians, and boy were they featured. This event was held in Lille, France, and was run by Complexity Card Gaming as part of their major tour series, a rather respectable set of events. It was a last-minute call to hold the event. Konami canceled YCS Lille a few weeks ago, so CCG cooked up a real quick event with only a few weeks of notice in order to compensate for losing the YCS in Lille. I mean, you got to admit though, that's pretty cool. But of course, we have to talk about the event itself, and oh boy was it a goodie. Just to give you an idea of the event as a whole before we dive in, we had 241 players enter, and the metagame breakdown for participation in the event is as follows. 22% of players played Performage Pendulum focused decks, 19% played Odd-Eyes Magicians, 16% Cosmo, 8% Magispector, 6% Satellar Knight, and 3% Burning Abyss. But that's not what you want to hear. I know that. You want to hear the top 16? That's what matters, of course. Don't worry, I got you. Ladies and gentlemen, your top 16 for CCG Major Stop Lille is 7 Performage Pendulum Magician, 4 Odd-Eyes Magician, 2 Magispector Magician, 1 Star Seraph Pendulum Magician, 1 Satellar Knight, and 1 Burning Abyss. A round of applause, please. Now, I've been preparing myself to say this for quite some time, so here goes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Next Format, your new Yu-Gi-Oh! For 2016 featuring the new Pendulum Menace. It doesn't take a rocket science to see that Magician absolutely devastated the event. 14 of the top 16 decks played some form of Magician variant, which is absolutely absurd. But of course, it was relatively clear that Magician was going to make a large splash at the top tables. But I think this truly marks the beginning of what the OCG has been going on, or would have been undertaken for the past few months. Now we are finally in a truly Pendulum-run format. Yeah, we had Pendulum decks do stuff in the past like Klee, and then eventually Pepe and Magispector surface, but they didn't dominate on this intense of a level. They played a role, but the Pendulum mechanic didn't really chokehold the game like it's starting to now. It was absolutely clear that we were going to move into a Pendulum format, where most if not all of the highest tier of decks run between the scales with a dedicated Pendulum strategy. Alas, here are your stats of the day. One of my favorite statistics that CCG dishes out is the comparison between representation of decks in the tournament as a whole versus the representation of the top 16. Here are those statistics. Pepe Magician got plus 22, which alludes to a 22% representation. That's a lot. Odd-Eyes Magician got a plus 6, Magician, or the Magispector Magician, got a plus 5, and Burning Abyss got a plus 3. That's pretty powerful overall. I'm not going to count really the Star Seraph Pepe Magician because there weren't that many people in the representation to begin with, so the results are skewed. But aside from that cool factor, we need to go over the greater implications of this event by looking at the performance of some of these decks that entered. I actually wish we had more information, though. I mean, they said that 22% of players enter the event playing a Performage Pendulum variant, but we don't know how much of those are the traditional Pepe that we've been seeing for the past few weeks, or if it's the Pepe Magician that obliterated the top 16. Based on the statistic of differences between the representation and the top 16, it should be 22% Magician in the tournament as a whole, but for some reason, I don't buy that. I doubt that all of them were playing Magician. It's hard to make assumptions on how many of them played Magicians or not. Like, it just kind of seems weird that every single Performance Pendulum deck was playing Magician. I don't think people would make that much of a turnaround. I'm not going to dwell too much on that whole matter. I'm just going to... Those are my 2 cents on the matter. Speaking of Magician, holy crap! 14 out of 16? What? Oh my god! Now, I predicted that Magician was going to be the best deck from the structure deck until Bosch. And that looks like it's going to be the case so far, but I think I made one miscalculation at the time, like I made my top 10 list. My one miscalculation involved Performage Pendulum. At first, I didn't really think that it was actually a deck. I didn't really think it was going to be a thing. And it needed the Breakers of Shadow support in order to actually be a thing. But it looks like I was proved wrong, as Pepe has done absolutely fantastic across the top tables ever since the deck materialized after ARG. it is also clear that the existence of Magician has only made that deck more of a reality. Alright. Two things, and then I'm going to chill out here. This event makes me wonder what is truly the best variant of Magician at the moment. The main three, in my opinion, are the Odd Eyes, the Performage, and the Magispector. I would argue that Odd Eyes is more powerful, but pales in comparison to the consistency of the Performage variant, in theory, of course. I think we're going to have to wait and see what the best variant is moving forward, because the post-Magician structure deck format still needs to solidify, just as any other format. I mean, you know what I mean by solidify. I mean, decks will begin to adopt the quote-unquote best strategy, which means, which you can tell all throughout formats, like all through different formats. Remember, at the beginning of each format, decks are relatively diverse or unique within the same archetype or strategy, but then towards the end of the format, they begin to look more alike, especially as the format drags on, and a more dominant strategy is agreed on by the player base who have been playing that deck. In short, let's just kick back, relax, and watch the fireworks. Oh, and my favorite controversy of the room. Where is it? Oh, yes, where are you? Yes, my favorite controversy. Let me just move in. Okay, look at that Cosmo. Alright. Yes, the gloriously omnipotent Cosmo deck that some people absolutely worship. Yo, check it. 16% of the total player base in the event were playing Cosmo. Guess how many who topped? That's right, 0, none, nada, null. Despite holding a considerable amount of representation, Cosmo absolutely flopped. Representation is supposed to help those decks' chances too. Like, if you have a high representation, you're going to have a higher chance of reaching top 16 since there are players playing your deck. Cosmo was the third most overall represented deck in this whole event, and they didn't get any top 16 slots. It's crazy. Of course, this was expected. It was clear months ago that Cosmo would not be able to hold a candle to Magician, and at the time we were thinking more of just Odd Eyes Magician. And it appears that the existence of Performage Pendulum, and of course the Magician variant of that deck, is only going to drive Cosmo further down into the hole. And yo, dude, Dark Destroyer is still $100 at the making of this video. I mean, come on boys, let's be real. Cosmo players, lay down your swords. Your deck just can't stand up to the Pendulum Menace, and it'll only get worse once we hit Bosch. And then it will be almost laughable once we get Monarchs enter the scene. Cosmo's opportunity to reign was from Dimension to Chaos to the Structure deck, and now, I mean, it's over. Okay, I mean, let's be a little bit more serious now. Is Cosmo still viable? I mean, of course, and so are decks like Stellar Knight and Burning Mist, as shown through this event. But those decks, like Stellar Knight and Burning Mist, they're absurdly cheap, and TBH, IRL, RN, they're at a fair price given their competitive potential. It just continues to baffle for me how much Dark Destroyer is given the deck's future. But, of course, maybe I'm just repeating myself at this point. I've said that many times. On the other side of the fence, however, you can't judge a format by just one event. It's going to be a short format until Breakers of Shadow, but it will still have to develop itself naturally. So we cannot use this event in particular as a blueprint until January 17th or so, or whenever Breakers of Shadow drops. Especially with how wacky last format was. Like, we had Cosmo that killed the first event. It was a Dimension of Chaos support that Necros were still viable. And then we had Magispector completely owning his CCG. I forget, I think Milan? I can't really remember. Yeah, I think it was in Milan. And then we had Pepe completely coming out of the woods at an ARG and kind of just destroyed that event in a thunderous and triumphant fashion. And then finally, Cosmo ended on a very high note at YCS Sao Paulo, I believe. Yeah, Sao Paulo. So, I mean, we can't take this event in particular as destiny or decree it as divine law, but I believe that this event confirms earlier predictions regarding Cosmo and, of course, Magician, and does still provide at least some insight as to what we will be seeing until Breakers of Shadow. I really want to talk about the Magicians more in depth and discuss my thoughts on the new Magician variants that have been popping up and what I learned from my own deck. I scanned through a lot of the deck lists for this event. Odd Eyes Magician, by the way, won the event, not Performage Magician, which is kind of interesting. I scanned through a lot of their deck lists. I was very intrigued at the differences between their decks and mine. Obviously these guys are, let's be honest, they're probably a lot better than I am. But it's kind of interesting how different they were, and I kind of want to go over my thoughts are just like the whole Magician mania. So I'll be posting another video sometime this week talking about that specifically. I don't want to drag this video on for too long. Basically, though, CCG Lille marks the beginning of the real and I mean the real Pendulum Age of Yu-Gi-Oh! The neo-new Yu-Gi-Oh! So buckle up and enjoy the ride, folks. Let me know what you all think. I found the results of this event absolutely fascinating, and I hope you guys do as well. So please drop a like or a comment, and definitely a sub if you can. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.